Welcome back to Kong API Summit 2025. My name is Paul Nashawaty, and I'm the practice lead and principal analyst at theCUBE Research for the app dev practice. And I'm joined today by Prashant. How you doing, Prashant?
Very good. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, great to have you here. Live on the show floor, it's pretty exciting. The keynotes, the sessions have been great. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Cognizant?
Excellent, excellent. So first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
A great day. At Cognizant, I manage our enterprise orchestration, enterprise integration, and supply chain practice globally. And Cognizant has been in this field for a while, helping our customers on transformation, and most recently, AI-led transformation, which is the topic of the day nowadays.
Yeah. No, it's exciting times. I mean, it really is. I mean, my practice, as I said, I'm in app dev and app modernization. I deal with past, present, and future, so it's right up your alley. It's what you do. But let's start with the event that's going on here, Kong API Summit. You're partner of the year, which is pretty exciting, right? Cognizant's, building that trust around Kong and Konnect and Kong Gateway. Anything to share around that?
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised when Augie and Marco spoke about how they are leveraging their Kong-Connect foundation and take it to the next level to support our customers' AI transformation. For example, they are bringing up this MCP control, governance, and observability to the full board, which has been the pain point for many architecture groups within our customers to decide about how to go about it. And second, very pleasant surprise is Kong is becoming very agnostic. They are saying bring your hybrid workloads, bring your on-prem workloads, bring your own cloud workloads, we'll manage it all. Yeah. So those are very good things for the customers nowadays who are struggling with the multitude of options across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I agree with you. I think that when we look at organizations, environments, they're not typically built in one aspect, right? They're built across the ecosystem. All right, let's talk a little bit about you, though. Let's talk about you. You're in charge of process orchestration in your practice. So what does that mean?
So if you look at any large enterprise, and when they buy platforms or products or have their own systems, any organization of significant size has at least 400 to 500 different systems. Maybe 30–40% of that is SaaS, and some of them are homegrown. Now, when you look at those platforms, and when you want to serve your end customer, you have to bring some of those system functions and aspects together. So process orchestration does that across the enterprise. Now, underlying that, what I call as twin engines is the enterprise integration, which takes care of the systems, services, and data to integrate them with the services. Then process orchestration sits on top of it to manage and navigate those process and workflows across the board. It can be end customer processes, or it can be internal human capital management processes, or anything like that.
So you're the glue that makes it stick together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And I like that, because when I think of modernization, I think the theme that I hear and that's been kind of pretty aware at the show is bridging the gap between heritage environments to new environments, and organizations, they need to run, but they also want to modernize, right? What are your thoughts around that?
See, the ecosystem is such that customers have migrated to cloud in the last 10 years, and they have done significant investments in that as well as in SaaS. So with this new AI wave, I don't think they have an appetite to again re-spend the capital to rewire, re-engineer everything.
Right.
They have to leverage the assets they have, whether it is system, functionality, the SaaS platforms, or the data, or even the underlying governance structures. They have to leverage that to get the benefit of the AI.
Yeah.
So to do that, I think Kong gateways and those things will help, because you are literally exploring the options of leveraging those existing assets and then bringing them together, gluing them together to give the end result, which can be business acceleration or cost reduction or productivity gain.
Yeah, I like the way you put that, because in my mind, everything becomes an LLM or an SLM, right? Regardless what, organizations are not going to throw out their data lakes and their data pools that they've been using, their big data solutions that they've had in the past, now become those data sources for these new AI initiatives. So whether you're using MCP or you're using your agents or whatever you're building, you need some way to harmonize in the connectivity of all that. Well, all right, so let's talk a little bit about, you work with enterprises across multiple industries, whether it's, financial services and aerospace, right? Those are not easy industries to work in. What kind of transformation challenges are you helping these organizations overcome?
Yeah. So through our leadership, right, Cognizant has redefined this strategy of helping customers on the 3 vectors. The first vector is automation and acceleration, gaining the low-end productivity, which then feeds into the next level of AI journey, which is hyper-automation, hyper-acceleration. And if you really see, that is when most of the initiatives begin to take shape when it comes to foundational work, whether it is deploying Kong or deploying Cognizant's own neuro platform and those things. The last one is taking customer to the completely agentic world, which requires, in fact, organizational change on the customer side. So the transformation that we see in any customer can fall into any of these three vectors, and different customers are at different maturity levels in that path itself. And because of that, Cognizant tries to meet them at that point, rather than prescribing, hey, this is how you do it. Because everybody is not mature, nor everybody is starting today. So we have to meet them where they are.
Oh, I totally agree with you. You know, when I built out my research that I just put out, I built, excuse me, I built a 5-stage maturity model. And I was talking exactly about that. Customers can enter in at any one of those stages. But even on top of that, applications within customer environments can enter in at any one of those stages. So it's very much along that. But you know, when we look at financial services and aerospace, is there anything that's unique that ties? I know there's requirements and governance.
Yeah. So Paul, I will take, I think, financial services is a domain, aerospace is a domain. And each one, in each of those, there are regulatory burdens as well, right? When I say burden, not in the negative sense, but in the sense of doing more work, right? Compliance.
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to AI, financial industry has to think a lot. I will give you a classic example, Paul, where in one of the cases, the project ended with a good use case of deploying an agent inside the underwriting system. But their quality team rejected that output because the product could not explain why the decision is made. Now, for example, you are a property and casualty customer. If the company denied your claim, they have to be able to explain why they denied you. In this project, that was not explained. So the traceability, the explainability, the audit trails, all those things, the financial industry and even aerospace need to incorporate. So it's not just deploying a technical project, leveraging LLMs and RAG models, and then building your own data fabric to deliver an end solution. There are a lot of other pieces, especially in these industries, which they have to take care. Right? And then on top of it, especially in the financial industry, there is a huge monetization effort going on. And APIs have to monetize. That's what Marco spoke about today.
Absolutely, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that is an all new angle to this capturing the growth side of it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That makes a lot of sense. I think that there's also a huge impact, and you kind of alluded to this already, is the huge impact of adding AI into it. We're not quite, in my mind, we're not quite ready to have like a complete autonomous, right? Completely automated, right? We still need a little bit of that human in the loop and to make sure that things are going right? Because at the end of the day, organizations are accountable for their business actions. And you know, I was talking to one organization, they said, well, it wasn't our fault, the AI put it out. It's like, but you did it, right? It's your business. So it's the same thing here. When you have compliance, governance, and regulations, you need to have the ability to have a human in the loop, right, and make sure that's what's working. But I want to come back to the monetization comment. That is a big factor. That's one of the big announcements here, right? We're talking about monetization of the API, chargeback models, doing understanding where the amount of flow is happening. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So again, maturity of that monetization will take some time. Because the parties which are involved in those transactions are still figuring out. You might have seen one of the big banks recently announcing that will cut off all the APIs because only one small company was taking 80% of the transaction workload and pulling all the information and pinging every so often. And they have to cut it off because it was hurting the another 20% of the customers who are really in need of those APIs to respond to, let's say, credit answers or availability of funds or transactions. So this is a path that everybody wants to take, but business model for monetization is still evolving, and it will come to fore once the other infrastructure and foundations are set in place. And on top of it, just think about it, an agent you can take me out of the equation if you don't like me or I'm compliant.
Right.
Similar thing needs to happen with agents. So there has to be a so-called kill switch. So to your point about human in the loop, autonomous, if that agent is switched off, which is probably handling tens of thousands of transactions, who's going to do that?
Right, right.
There is no other second agent. There is no other Paul or Prashant.
Right, right.
So I think all those things will matter because monetization will also come with certain penalties, certain performance guarantees, certain KPIs.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense, and we had some of those larger banks on earlier today on the show here.
Sure.
So well, yeah, for the audience, look back at those events as well.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot there to kind of unpack, right? When you look at compliance, human in the loop, and automation, we touched a little bit about hybrid environments, right? We touched a little bit about on-prem and working with the cloud, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the announcements, right? We talked about Kong-Connect and Kong-Gateway across hybrid environments. What does that mean from a technology stack and, for when it comes to scaling securely, but also, how do you prepare for the agentic AI era with regards to this whole movement, right?
Yeah, it is, I would say a little bit counterintuitive. Nowadays, many technologies like Kong offer what you want to do, but most of the mistakes will happen in how you deploy them.
Right. Yeah.
Right? You talked about agents across the different towers. So multi-agent orchestration can be handled through Kong, through Cognizant Neuro platform. But the question is how you implement it. If you as a human miss that, and then if that leads into some other aspects of business loss or transaction issues, how do you handle it?
Right.
So it's not just the technology being ready to be used, it's about how you are consuming it as a human being to deploy within your organization.
Yeah, and that also, we could talk all day on this, but that also opens up the skill gap issues, that opens up where the citizen developer part and everything that kind of goes along with this. But I think that kind of aligns to where I want to go next, which is what has been the key successes between the partnership with Kong and Cognizant?
Yeah, so one biggest thing that happened to Kong and Cognizant about 2-3 years back is our CEO came in new, he was talking on AI, he was one of the early champions of AI, and we all caught on to it in the company. At the same time, Kong also changed their mindset, even though they're much smaller, nimble organization on the AI journey. Okay, so we started to discuss about how to go to market. Kong API gateway is there, and then Kong Connect. And we saw that the path is converging in terms of how we both want to do things. So that's where I think the idea of the help to customer came into kind of similar path.
Yep.
And most importantly, it's a trust and transparency we both have with each other. And that's where the partnership is, I think, ready to take on to the next level.
Very cool. So, Prashant, we're sitting here in 2026, a year from now, at Kong's API Summit a year from now. We're doing the same conversation. We're talking about this. Looking ahead, how do you see Cognizant, in the Kong partnership really expanding, or what's the need for enterprises to take that next wave of digital and AI transformation?
I was thinking you're going to ask me to have a crystal ball to talk about AI. Glad that you did not do it. So you threw a very simple question.
I did.
Because we are investing both heavily in solutions and platforms and products, both of us. So I would say if we can help some customers, to your point about organizational change and getting to the complexities of AI transformation, I think we would succeed. My way of seeing the success is fast forward next Kong Summit, if we both are on stage, Augie and I, and talk about a couple of customer case studies, this is how it taken them, that would be a success.
That'll be great. Yeah. Well, Prashant, thank you for your time, your insights. This has been really great. I really appreciate you being on theCUBE with us today. It's really been awesome, and this event's been really great.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And thank you to the audience. My name is Paul Nashawaty, and I'm coming to you live from the show floor at Kong API Summit at 2025 on theCUBE, your leading source of tech news.